Hey guys, what's up? Double Deuce back. Today, we're going to tear apart the HG-P407 gearbox and see why it don't shift. I think I figured it out, but I'll bang it apart real quick and I'll put it back together and we'll see if I fix the problem. Here we go. Okay, so we'll start by taking this thing apart and we'll figure this out. These things are notorious for binding up when they're trying to shift. Alright, this one was completely dry when I got it. And watch how I take this thing apart, because it'll go back together the same way. I had shot some HHS-2000 in there from Worth, and that seemed to help a little bit. But what I'm thinking is, I seen a difference in here when I looked at it before. One of the shift colors is anodized coating and the other one's not, and I switched them around a long time ago, and it made a little bit of a difference, but not much. So little E-clip in the front here, usually these go flying. Now in the back, before we get too far, we have to take this off. Actually, you don't have to take it off, but it makes it easier to get in there, and because you got to take that shift shaft right off there. Shift shaft, that's cool. Come on, there we go. Come on, you got this. Yep. There we go. Now, this is actually a inside there's a grub screw, a big long grub screw, and it's all screwed in. I mean, for your shift ball. Okay, now take these little guys off here. This is where it usually flies, and I've gotten pretty good at this. I got my little bag just in case, you know, but so far I've got extra ones of these little things laying around, and so if I lose one, I ain't scared. Okay. Okay, get a little light on the subject over here. Now, got the front off. Pull this right out. There's the bearing here. Make sure you keep all your bearings. A lot of these are all different sizes. The big bearing here. Got your planetary gear here. Like that. There's a bearing inside there that goes down inside the planetary shaft. Throw that back in there. There is a small brass sleeve here that you want to keep track of too on this thing. And get it right off. Now, this is how I take them apart. Now that the front is done, I'll show you the back. So on the gearbox, you know, you got your, remember, the diagonal on your front drive shaft, because the thing sets, use this as your plane level, okay? These two here go in your cross member, so you just line them up with them when you put them back together. So, get them out of there real quick. Now, taking these apart and putting them back together it's pretty simple. If you do it, it took me a few times to figure this out, and when I figured it out, I was like, wow, that was really simple. I don't know why I didn't think about that before, but yeah. You're off. You don't have to take off this bolt if you don't want to, because it's on the back case. It screws right into it. Now grab your shift fork like so. Pull everything right out. Okay, now notice how it comes apart. Now you're going to put it back together just like this. You're going to assemble everything on this case back here, even this here. Put that in there like so, and you're going to put it all, make sure this is down, and make sure this doesn't turn on you, because those little balls are in there. Got to get my hand out of the way here, but this is how it's going to go right back together. The only thing you have to do when you do this is get the bearing in here and this bearing in here. That's it. And you can, yeah, sorry about that, guys. My camera moved on me there. All right, yeah. So you have to line up the bearing in the back and the bearing here on the bottom. So pop this right out. Now your four-wheel drive shaft comes apart because it's just a hex key. Goes in the gear like that, and the bearing on each end of it, like so. So put that right back in there. Now, this is what I found out. See how it's different? The back and the front has the two different color shift collars on it. So take the shifting forks right off of it here. Now, you'll notice in here, there's two little divots here. See that ball? Well, that ball goes on this shaft because there's a little divot, two divots in this shaft and a hole here, and you put the ball in, and then there's two divots in there. When you want to put them back together, you line it up. Now in the center, there's an E-clip to keep it from falling out. So just be careful with this. Usually I grease that up and put some grease on it before I tear into it. So now if you notice, there's no grease in this thing at all. It was totally dry when I got it, and like I say, I shot a little of this stuff in here, this HHS 2000 from Worth, and you know, it turns to grease. So it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and I think I know what the problem is on this one. I'll pop off this back thing here like so. Pin folds out on me, yeah buddy. Now inside here I got a little file, a little flat file that came with my hobby kit. So you'll want to get this in front of the camera as good as I can. You're going to want to, on the very edge here, just round these off a little bit like so, because I found out that these ones that aren't machined, that are just raw machined like this and not anodized, aren't finished. It's almost like they was in such a hurry to slam them together, or they missed out on a step here when they were making these things. Okay. Get all 6 sides done on one side, turn around, do the other side. What this does, it lets the collar slide over the hex a lot easier, because there's a little rough edge on these when they make them. Okay. Ta-da! Ooh. There we go. I'm going to wipe this off real good with a rag. And I don't have anything to rinse it with. That that's all right. Clean it up with a rag real good. Now, if your transmission, the gearbox is already, was working and it started locking up on you, take it apart, and if you got any rubbing alcohol or anything like that, just put a little bit in like a little container and put all the parts in there and flush them around a little bit. Now we'll see if this slides a lot better. Look at that. That's pretty good. So let me see as far as grease goes. I'll use some of this. This turns to grease after a while. Still a little sticky, but this one here floats like butter because it's got like an anodized coating on it. If you can get them with the anodized coating, that's a bonus because I think that helps these things shift, if you want my honest opinion. Just pin back in. Ooh, here we go. Pin goes on there, and this side of the hex that has the notches in it goes right over top of it, like so. Lock it in. Now seems to glide a lot nicer over that. Doesn't seem to hang up as much. This here falls right off. Now it doesn't matter. You can put these on either way if you want to, and that would be, it doesn't matter at that point. Now this is your first gear. This is the one I always remove. I always remove this and I grind a little flat spot on there, and I usually eliminate that thing too, and that pin in there, and I make it full-time four-wheel drive. So you make the hex match the hex like so, and now sometimes the bearings don't seat in the gear very well, and when you put that E-clip on there, I've had them where I've taken that E-clip off and left it off, because that seems to help it shift too, because it's not, not over tight, you know what I mean? The E-clip's just there as a convenience, I think, to keep everything held together for you. On that, put our E-clip back on. We'll put this thing back together, and we'll see if it shifts any better. So far, may have to take a little off that gear too, maybe, I don't know. No. You can actually see on the gear where it was wearing on the ends of the thing. And in the past, I have taken, when I was converting these to the slipper clutch, the Tamiya ones, inside there, they have that grooved out like a circle, because they have a different pattern in there. And I've grooved them out, and it's helped them shift too. Just take a little Dremel tool and just kind of like smooth out the circle, and everything will be fine. I'll put this back on here. Now we're going to put it back together. I'll put this in here. Whoop, we got to put this on first. Now this is the tricky part. Make sure your balls are lined up in there. They're in there. Okay. Down inside, hold it flat, put it on here, and there's a little pin on there you're going to want to line up on the back of this. This is why it's easier to put it together this way. So sometimes it's your little fall together. Now, there we go. Now you see, I've got that little, there's a little pin in there, and then now I'll hold this just like that. You pinch it by the shift shaft, okay? Put this on like so, and slide it all together. Kind of doing this left hand backwards, so it's a little difficult for me to do it this way on camera, because this thing they usually fall right together. So just like so. Look at that. Clunk clunk. We're right together. Now take one screw, throw it in the top, one in the bottom, and just give them a little snug for now, just so you can flip it back the other way without everything falling out of it. Now, okay, so now we'll put our front back together like so. Make sure your bearing is still laying in there, because you're going to want to put it in just like that, and then slide it all down in. Screwdriver, something to help it go in. Put this big bearing on the planetary gear setup like that. Make sure your bearing is still in there, and slide this all together and kind of give it a little twist, and everything should fall in place, hopefully. But you got to get that planetary gear in there, and you got to get the main gear in there. Come on. It's got a hexagon in there, and you got to line up that hexagon inside there. So usually after you actually, when you know, now it's not gonna fall together for me now. It's gonna break my nads. Okay, now it's in. Now I'll put your bearing in like that. Put the big one in there like that. Your spur gear in like that. Now it's all pretty much together. Now keep everything lined up, because these things only go on one way anyway, so don't worry about it. You know, I always do this. I always forget the bearing at the back. I'll put that in after. Yeah, we'll put our E-clip on the front. Quickly. I love the magnetic screwdrivers, but then again, I hate them. They're great for picking up little things, but they're a real pain when you're trying to install the E-clip. Gotta be fast about this. Now we'll see if this thing shifts any better. We get it done. So a lot of transmissions, that shift collar on there, it gets all kinds of dirt and debris and everything else in there. And so there's no bearing back here yet, but that shouldn't affect the shift. Now look at that. Look how easy that moves now. Now that I've taken and removed that burr that was on the front of it. Oh no, that was the bearing here. Okay, I did put the other bearing in the back. All right, cool. I didn't skip it this time. All right, now line these up like so. Because I didn't even remove the motor. So put it all back together just like that. And tighten her up. But I'm getting this all on camera because it's kind of hard to work from the side, I guess. If I get them eyeglasses, I got the camera lens on them. That would be cool. And probably time I should upgrade on my screwdriver set. Thing's broken, torn. I've got it all taped together, and it still works. Now, one thing I found out too is you over tighten these things, it makes everything worse. If you really should like just Loctite these and snug them up and not over tighten them, because what it does is it crushes this plastic planetary housing here and makes for a real bound up mess. Now, as you can see, that's working like butter. So that's first gear. Make sure the bottom's moving too. Yep, okay. And then second gear and third gear. Now that's the way it should go. So the same on the back. When you put these in here, just snug them up with a little bit of Loctite. If you don't have Loctite, use like model glue or something. There's not a whole lot of vibration in these gearboxes, but there is probably enough to, you know, for the stuff to rattle out if it's only just lightly snugged. I think the major problem of this whole scenario is if you look at these gearboxes, there's no machining on pretty much anywhere. They're just, you know, they're made in a mold, they're poured, and, you know, there's no machining nowhere. So an individual box, each part on this thing is going to be different on every single one. So what I'm thinking is the earlier ones, when these things first come out, I'm thinking that their molds was probably spot on. You know, looks like they only copied it from Tamiya. One thing I'd like to do down the road is I would like to buy the Tamiya gear case, because they sell all this. The Hot Racing, they sell a back plate for this for some reason unknown, but it sounds to me like there's a problem with the back plate and things lining up, you know. And so they have a billet machine back plate, and if you bought the two pieces here for you know, the Tamiya re-release Bruiser, you can still get them out there. They still sell them, and I think that would be a start. But so we got this all taken care of now, and I'll get my little shifting back on here. And like I say, sometimes, you know, the grub screw holding it on there is a good idea, but when this thing only has to go in and out. That's all it has to do, you know. No, it shouldn't be no twisting side to side on it. And with this thing locked up, I'm kind of wondering when the servo, if it kicks off to the side on the thing, if it's binding the shaft. Because, I mean, I've seen some of these shafts in here, they're only aluminum, riding on aluminum, and then they got a steel shaft in the center. And I've seen some of these things actually go, and they're just smoked. I mean, they're all like marred and like, you know, messed up really bad. And I'm kind of wondering if it's the stress turning from side to side with the servo arm. And make sure you set your end points on your servo so it doesn't overextend it or over pull it back. I've had to actually make servo arms for these things. These things come with a servo saver from the factory, and if you know, I've always gotten rid of the servo saver, and because the spring expands out on them and stretches, and I've taken and just put a servo arm on there, and you know, sometimes I've slotted a hole in the thing just a little bit back so it has the perfect throw back and forth. So that little burr on that shift collar was the culprit. Now look at that. That's the way it should shift. Free and easy. So, alright guys, that's the HG-P407. Tear it apart and throw it back together as fast as I could do it. So I didn't bore you guys. Hopefully you had enough time to finish your pizza or popcorn, whatever you sat down with. And like, share, subscribe. You got any questions or comments, feel free to hit me up, man. I'll catch you later.